Hello and welcome to the Bhagavatam. Today we're going to hear about perhaps one of the most moving events in the Bhagavatam. And this is the time when Krishna meets with the residents of Vrindavan. See, Krishna had been gone from Vrindavan. I think I'll start at the beginning a little bit, give you some background. This whole event that is taking place in a place called Kurukshetra. So once while Balaram and Krishna were living in Dwarka, this was their kingdom on an island in the ocean, there occurred a great eclipse of the sun, and it appeared as if it was going to be the end of the earth. It was one of those big eclipses, solar eclipse. Vedic astronomers of 5,000 years ago could predict eclipses of the sun and moon just as well as our modern-day astronomers can. The knowledge of the ancient astronomers went much further, however, since they understood the karmic influence of such events. Solar and lunar eclipses are generally very inauspicious, with certain rare exceptions. But when used for the glorification of Krishna, the Supreme Godhead, the time of an eclipse becomes advantageous for fasting and worship. So there is an art, if one knows it, in being able to turn lead into gold. It's called alchemy. And there is an art of being able to turn the inauspicious, unfavorable, into favorable. So you'll find that on certain times, like certain eclipse days, certain other days, you'll find devotees in the Sanatan Dharma system going to the rivers like the Yamuna or the Ganga to bathe. Or they'll be at home chanting mantras. Or they'll be in some way cleansing, purifying their hearts, their minds, because they treat this as a special time. We treat obstacles as a special time in which to uplift and purify ourselves. Therefore, the obstacle no longer becomes an obstacle, but actually becomes something that is favorable. So this is how a devotee of God turns that which is negative into positive, or as the alchemist did, turning lead into gold. So it is on such an occasion, there was this huge eclipse about to take place, and people knew about this well in advance. You see, the ancient Vedic sages and rishis, they studied the heavenly planets, they studied the solar system, they studied without having telescopes. How did they do that? It was through their meditation practices. They could, in fact, travel to different planets. They could, in fact, observe the nature of the universe through their meditative practices. You may say, oh, that's not possible. We need telescopes. Well, think about things like remote viewing, which have been discovered even by the government of the United States, where they've been using it as a way of being able to spy on various countries and what's going on over there. The practice has been around for decades now. But it was known thousands of years ago, and great yogis who had these mystical powers would use them accordingly to study the nature of reality, to study the nature of the universe, so they used it to go far and wide all over the solar system and various universes beyond. So many people had come to this holy place known as Samanta Panchaka in order to earn pious credit. So this holy pilgrimage site, which is known as Samanta Panchaka, is located at Kurukshetra. Kurukshetra means the sacred ground of the sacred land of the Kurus. Now, in the past, we've talked about them. We've talked about the Pandavas, 5 brothers, the sons of Pandu, and we've talked about the Kauravas. They were the sons of Dhritarashtra. The eldest of these was Duryodhan. So, this pilgrimage site, Samanta Panchaka, was the sacred ground of the Kurus, of the Kauravas. And their predecessors had performed many sacrifices here. The Kurus were thus advised, so these Kauravas, they were advised by learned Brahmins that this would be the best place for them to observe vows during the eclipse. There was another important reason for this particular location being very, very auspicious. After ridding the earth of kings, see, there was a time when the earth, and this is going well before the time of the Mahabharata, well before the time of the Pandavas and Kauravas, which we've been reading about, well before the time of Krishna, thousands of years before, when Parashuram, another incarnation of Vishnu, had appeared on the earth to rid the earth of all the kings and Kshatriyas, the warriors. Why? Because they had, once again, created havoc on earth. This keeps happening. This happened at the time of Parshuram. This happened at the time of the Mahabharata, so the time when Krishna was here 5,000 years ago. And it is happening even today. So this Parshuram went about killing all the warriors and Kshatriyas. And because he was an incarnation of Vishnu, he had immense power. In fact, it is said that it is from the blood of all those warriors that these 5 lakes were created. He created huge lakes from the king's blood at Samantak Panchakar, this place we've been talking about. Long ago, Parshuram had done penance at this place in Kurukshetra. So this place is in Kurukshetra. Kurukshetra is in Haryana, in India. It is the place where the Mahabharata took place later. Right now, I used to think that this incident occurred after the Battle of Mahabharata, but that was incorrect. It occurred well before the Battle of Mahabharata, as we'll read about just now. So, Parshuram, thousands of years before, had done penance at this place in Kurukshetra to atone for the killings of all the great Kshatriya kings. Samanta Panchaka meant the 5 ponds that he dug there. They're still present. They were present at the time of Dwapar Yuga when Krishna was here, and they are even present today. They're known as the 5 lakes. Although Parshuram is never tainted by karmic reaction, see, being an incarnation of Vishnu, he had come to perform a certain function. And therefore, he is not tainted by karmic reactions. We, when we go out and we kill someone, or create a genocide where we kill thousands of people, we are definitely tainted by karmic reaction. But when the Supreme Godhead incarnates in a certain way to perform a certain function, he doesn't incur karma. Krishna is beyond karma. People don't often understand this. They think, oh, no, everyone is subject to karma. Yes, everyone is subject to karma except God. He is akarma. He is beyond karma. So although Parshuram is never tainted by karmic reactions, he performed sacrifices here. So he performed many yajna. Yajna is a sacrifice fire ceremony to instruct people in general that they must atone for any wrongdoing that they do. Thus he acted like an ordinary person trying to free himself from sins. Now, at this present time that we are talking about, in Dwapar Yuga, the time of Krishna, people from all over Bharatvarsh, or India as it's now been called, they came in great numbers to that place of pilgrimage. And among those arriving at the holy place were many members of Krishna's family. They're known as the Vrishnis, or the Yadavas, the Yadav dynasty, or the Vrishnis. Many, including Krishna's sons, had come, while others, such as Krishna's grandson, Aniruddha, along with Kritavarma, the commander-in-chief of their armed forces, stayed back in Dwarka to guard the city. Now, Srila Sanatana Goswami explains in his Vaishnava Toshani commentary that the events of this chapter that we're embarking on right now, the 82nd chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam of the 10th Canto, this incident that we're going to read about, occurred after Balaram's visit to Vrindavan. This is the time where he met with the gopis. This is the time where he this is before, so, if you might remember the time when he met the gopis, Balaram spent a lot of time, many months there in Vrindavan, because their hearts were broken after Krishna and Balaram had left. This was also before the Rajasuya sacrifice, which we read about just a little while back, that King Yudhishthir had performed. This is most likely because during the eclipse at Kurukshetra, all the Kurus, that is Dhritarashtra, Yudhishthir, Bhishma, Drona, everyone was there. So it was not after the Battle of Mahabharat, but well before that. It was before, in fact, the Rajasuya. You see, what happened is King Yudhishthir of the Pandavas, and I'm sorry if you're getting lost with the names. If you've been following all along, you'll know what I'm talking about. But in case you're coming for the first time, you might find some of the names confusing. Do go back and check some of the earlier episodes and you'll be able to catch up. So we see at this time that all the Kauravas were here, the Pandavas were here. All those people who died in the Battle of Mahabharat were all here at this time. So definitely it is before the Mahabharat. It is also before the Rajasuya. So they were all here at this time with a lot of friendship and happily sharing the company of Krishna. See, at the time of the Rajasuya, Duryodhan's jealousy, Duryodhan was the eldest brother of the Kauravas. The Kauravas were the army that fought against the Pandavas in the Mahabharata. So Duryodhan's jealousy against the Pandavas had become irrevocably inflamed. We've gone over those incidents as to how that happened and why that happened. But keep this in mind, that Duryodhan's jealousy had become, and his anger had become irrevocably inflamed. So soon after the Rajasuya, Duryodhan challenged Yudhishthira and his brothers to the gambling match in which he cheated them of their kingdom and exiled them to the forest. Right after the Pandavas returned from exile, the great battle of Kurukshetra, the Mahabharata, took place, during which time Bhishma, Drona, and all these people who are now present at Kurukshetra in this particular ceremony that's about to take place, all of them were killed. So it's not logically possible for the solar eclipse at Kurukshetra to have happened after the Rajasuya. It happened before the Rajasuya and after Balaram's visit to Vrindavan. That's the short version. Okay, the mighty Yadavas, Krishna's family, passed with great majesty along the road. They were a huge, powerful dynasty now. They were attended by their soldiers who rode on chariots, rivaling the airplanes of heaven, on horses moving with rhythmic gait, and on bellowing elephants as huge as clouds. Along with them were many infantrymen who were as effulgent as devas. Even the infantrymen, right? The guys who were walking, the soldiers who were walking, they were as effulgent as devas. The Yadavas, Krishna's family members, were so divinely dressed, being adorned with gold necklaces and flower garlands and wearing fine armor, that as they proceeded along the road with their wives, they seemed to be demigods flying through the sky. Now, they weren't actually flying, but they seemed to be like demigods, because they often speak of the devas, the demigods, coming in their vimana, their airplanes, and blessing people or witnessing the incidents, especially incidents of Krishna's Leela and pastimes. So when the Yadavas arrived at this place where where it was auspicious to bathe in that area, the Samantak Panchaka, saintly Yadavas bathed there, and then they observed a fast with careful attention. Afterward, they presented the Brahmins. So always the Brahmins are given in charity. So they presented the Brahmins with cows bedecked with garments, flower garlands, and gold necklaces. So these are auspicious acts. These cows are never killed. They are taken care of with great reverence and veneration, because unlike the modern day thinking of the Vedic period and of the great sages and rishis of that time, was that milk was considered the most valuable of products. And it was considered that one could just live on milk alone. It was considered to be the healthiest food. In today's time, I don't know what they've done to it. Maybe they've done nothing, and maybe people have just been eating too much of meat and eating too much of animals, cows for that matter, and maybe that's why they have an allergy or they have problems. And maybe they've infected these cows with so many things. I don't know. They put all kinds of shots into them and steroids and what have you. Maybe that's why the milk gets polluted. I don't know. And, but the point being that cows have always been held in Vedic time as the most precious of creatures. And so these were given to the Brahmins. In accordance with scriptural injunctions, the descendants of Vrishni, that's Krishna's family, then bathed once more in Parshuram's lakes and fed Brahmins with sumptuous food. So they did this more than once. All the while they prayed, "May we be granted devotion to Krishna." It is said that this is the greatest prayer of all. May I be granted devotion to Krishna. There are many stages in devotion. The first of them is that we come to Krishna through a desire to understand the truth. Athato Brahma Jigyasa. In the beginning, we have a desire to understand. And then, as we come onto this path, we need a little bit of Shraddha, a little bit of faith. And with that little bit of faith, we engage in sadhu sangha. That means we listen to devotees of Krishna. And when we hear them, that inspires us to do bhajana kriya, that is to chant, to hear, to read, to engage in bhajan, or in other words, to engage in worship of the Supreme Godhead. Then from that bhajan, from that process, you see, it's scientific. It's not just something imaginary. It's not just a ritual. It's not just something you do because everybody's been doing it for thousands of years. No, because from that bhajan, from that process of worship, bhaja means to worship, comes anartha nivriti, that one's impurities, one's desires for sense gratification, one's desires to do things that are unhealthy for the body, the mind, and for spirituality, those become cleansed. Anartha nivriti. Nivriti means liberation or freedom from the negative qualities that we have within us. What those are is a big explanation. We can talk about it sometime. Then anartha nivriti, after that comes ruchi. One develops a taste. One enjoys these pastimes. One enjoys hearing these things. One enjoys chanting the name of Krishna and eating prasad. One begins to enjoy this ruchi. In this way, one advances towards prema bhakti. Yeah, it's a deep science, and it's very important to understand it. There comes anartha nivriti, then comes nishtha. You become very fixed in your faith. You know this to be a fact. Why? Because you're seeing evidence of it. You're seeing changes happening within you. You're noticing yourself feeling lighter and better and happier and more joyous and more loving and more kind, and your heart has become softer. And you see it's a massive transformation that has occurred within you. So therefore your faith becomes strong, nishtha. It's not some promise. It's an experience. It's a result that you will have here and now. And from that nishtha, from that great faith now comes a real enjoyment for these things. You begin to relish them. That's ruchi. Then it progresses further. I won't go into everything now. But it culminates in love of God. So they are praying for this. May we be granted devotion to Krishna. Then, with the permission of Krishna, their sole object of worship, they ate breakfast and sat down at their leisure beneath the cooling shade of the trees. So although they were asking for devotion to Krishna, they were already great devotees of Krishna. They were in his presence. They were with him all the time. Yet they are praying for devotion. It's quite fascinating that the more you get of this, the more you want of it. It is that you become perpetually thirsty to have more. Now, this is not like material things, which the more you have, it becomes boring. You no longer care. No, it's the same thing that's exciting you more and more and more. It's not like you need to have different things. It's not like the material world where you have to buy so many products and each time you want a new thing and another thing and another thing. No, it's the same thing. In the spiritual world, it's the same thing. The same Bhagavad Gita. The same chanting of the names of Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. The same names chanted thousands of times every day. And they are ever fresh, and they're ever new, and they're ever more powerful. Because Krishna himself is ever new. He is Navayovana. He is invariably, eternally new. He is always youthful. He is always fresh. Navayovana, eternally youthful. The Yadavas saw, that's Krishna's family, saw that many of the kings who had arrived were old friends and relatives who had traveled there from all over India, from Bharatvarsh. They also saw many hundreds of other kings, both allies and adversaries. And it was okay. They were all meeting in this holy place. In addition, they saw their dear friends from Vrindavan, King Nanda and the cowherd men and women who had been suffering in anxiety for so long. Why were they suffering from anxiety? Because of separation from Krishna. When will we see Krishna again? That was the anxiety. When will our darling of our hearts come back to us again? That was the anxiety. When we'll be able to hold him and see him and touch him and embrace him and see his wonderful Leela and pastimes again. That was the anxiety. So they were also here, the residents of Vrindavan. Krishna had been with them as a small boy, but now they were about to reunite. As the great joy of seeing one another made the lotuses of their hearts and faces bloom with fresh beauty, the men embraced one another enthusiastically, with tears pouring from their eyes, their hair on their bodies standing on end, and their voices choked up. They all felt intense bliss. The women glanced at one another with pure smiles of loving friendship, and when they embraced, their eyes filled with tears of affection. They then offered obeisances, respect, pranam, to the elders, and received respect in turn from their younger relatives. After inquiring from one another about the comfort of their trip and their well-being, they proceeded to talk about Krishna. Queen Kunti, you've heard about her before, she's the mother of the Pandavas, met with her brothers and sisters. So this is Queen Kunti. She met with her brothers and sisters and their children, and also with her parents, her brothers, wives, and Krishna. While talking with them, she forgot her sorrow. Queen Kunti said, "My dear respectable brother Vasudeva," that's Krishna's father, Vasudeva, "I feel that my desires have been frustrated because although all of you are most saintly, you forgot me during my calamities." Friends and family members, even children, brothers, and parents forget a dear one whom providence no longer favors. Now, there's immense wisdom in what she's saying. When someone's going through a hard time, when someone's in real trouble, most people conveniently forget about them. And when they're doing well, oh, they're prospering, oh, everyone wants to come and meet them. But that's not real friendship, and that's not real family. Right? So she's talking that in general, you will find that even children, brothers, and parents will forget a dear one whom providence no longer favors. Kunti does not blame her relatives for her suffering. She calls them most saintly persons and alludes here to her own bad fortune as the cause of her unhappiness. So she's gone through a lot. Her husband died. Her children were no longer to inherit the throne. Her husband's brother went back on him. The blind king Dhritarashtra took back the throne. So much happened. There were so many attempts at killing them. That is Kunti and her sons. So now Vasudeva, her brother, Krishna's father, says to her, "Dear sister, please do not be angry with us. We are only ordinary men, playthings of fate." What a wonderful way to look at life. We are playthings of fate. We have our own karma. So if you say, I don't believe in fate, well, we have our karma. And that karma is coming to get us one way or the other, good or bad. And even if some people who have done bad things are experiencing good stuff right now, well, they're exhausting their good karma. Then will come the bad karma. That time will come. As they exhaust their good karma, bad karma will come back to catch up with them. So the idea is not to be caught up in either good karma or bad karma, but is to actually become devoted to God and become free of karma. That is the idea. So Vasudeva says, indeed, whether a person acts on his own or is forced by others, he is always under the Supreme Lord's control. What a profound... So is God controlling everyone? Is God are we just puppets on a string and is God just controlling us? Is this what he's trying to say? No, he's not saying that. You see, God has set up a system, and that system is automated. He doesn't need to personally be there checking on every single person, watching over their shoulder, seeing what it is they do, writing it all down. No, this is ridiculous. There are 8 billion people on this planet and so many billions more on other planets. That's nonsense. All of this is automated. All of it is happening automatically. God does not personally have to be involved. And yet, because he is the creator of the system, one may therefore say that it is under his control. Yes, so to speak. Harassed by Kants, we fled. So Vasudeva is speaking now. Harassed by Kants, that is the king Kants, we fled in various directions, and by the grace of Providence, we have now finally been able to return to our homes, my dear sister. Then Vasudeva, Ugrasen, that's his father, and the other Yadus, their entire family, honored the various kings who became supremely blissful and content upon seeing Krishna. All the royalty present, including Bhishma, Drona, Dhritarashtra, Gandhari, and her sons, the Pandavas, their wives, Kunti, Vidura, and many other kings subservient to King Yudhishthir, were all honored. So if you remember the Pandavas, we've talked about them before. And if you remember, amongst them was King Yudhishthir. The assembled kings were simply amazed to see the transcendental form of Sri Krishna, Krishna, who is the abode of all opulence and beauty, as he was standing before them with his wives. After Balaram and Krishna, Balaram's Krishna's brother, Balaram and Krishna had liberally honored everyone with great joy and enthusiasm, these kings began to praise the members of Krishna's family, the Vrishni dynasty, and Krishna's personal associates. The king said, so these are all the assembled kings out there who have all come for this ceremony that is going to happen, bathing in the river. The king said, O king of the Bhojas, you alone among men have achieved a truly exalted birth, for you continually behold Sri Krishna, who is rarely visible even to great yogis. They're saying to Krishna's father that you are most exalted because you continually see Krishna, who is rarely visible even to great yogis. So great yogis perform tremendous penances and austerities, massive practices of yoga and fasting and meditation and all kinds of things that they do. And they're rarely ever able to see Krishna. And yet here's Krishna's father, Vasudeva, constantly able to be with him. Krishna's fame as broadcast by the Vedas, the water that has washed his feet, and the words he speaks in the form of revealed scriptures, these thoroughly purify the universe. Although the earth's good fortune was ravaged by time, the touch of his lotus feet has revitalized her, and thus she is raining down on us the fulfillment of all our desires. The same Vishnu who makes one forget the goals of heaven and liberation has now entered into marital and blood relationships with you who otherwise travel on the path of family life. Indeed, these relationships you see, and in these relationships you see and touch him directly, walk beside him, converse with him, and together with him lie down to rest, sit at ease and take your meals. I want you to imagine what it might be like if you were someday to be able to be with God. If you were someday able to see him, touch him, walk beside him, embrace him, converse with him, sit down and eat together, rest together, and enjoy all kinds of wonderful pastimes together. What would your life be like? What would it be like to be able to have that opportunity? Because that opportunity is available to all of us. It is. It requires one thing only: pure, loving devotion. Prema pumarta mohan. It is the greatest kind of love, this divine love. And that is what is required. And to get that, you have to be willing to give up all else. You got to be able to let go all the other attractions of the world, and all the other worries of the world, and all the other stresses of the world, and all the other headaches that you've taken on, and completely become devoted to him. It's not easy to do. It's very, very difficult. And yet it is the most rewarding. In the purport it is written, all Vedic mantras glorify Vishnu. The words Vishnu himself speaks, such as the Bhagavad Gita, are the confidential essence of all scripture. In the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15, text number 15, Krishna says, Vedaischa sarvair aham eva vedyaha, Vedanta vid vedavid eva chaham. By all the Vedas I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta and I am the knower of the Vedas. Vedanta Vrid. He says it right here. I am the compiler of Vedanta and I am the knower of the Vedas. So people don't understand that. They think the Vedanta is greater than Krishna himself. It's not. It's written by him. The word Om comes from him. It symbolizes him. Krishna says that in the Bhagavad Gita. In these verses, the assembled kings praise the special merit of Krishna's Yadu clan. Not only do they see Krishna, these family members, but they are also directly connected with him by dual bonds of family friendship. The word bandha used here can also be understood in the sense of capture, expressing that the love that they feel for Krishna obliges him to always stay with them. This is not a negative obligation. This is a positive version of obligation. It is a binding force. That love binds Krishna. As we see with Mother Yashoda, when she ties Krishna up, she binds him. He who cannot be bound by anyone, who cannot be controlled by anyone, allows himself to be bound by his mother because of her parental love for him. He allows himself to be captured and held by her. When King Nanda, Krishna's foster father, I guess we'll have to say, the father who raised him when he was a baby, when King Nanda learned that the Yadus had arrived, Krishna's family had arrived, led by Krishna, he immediately went to see them. Now, Nanda is the head of the cowherd people from that particular community. He is their king. They have a very prosperous kingdom with their cows and the milk that they produce and the milk products that they produce from there, including butter. So Nanda and all the other cowherd men went to go and see Krishna and his family, of course. And they went there accompanied their various possessions loaded on their wagons. Seeing Nanda, the Vrishnis were delighted, Krishna's family were delighted, and stood up like dead bodies coming back to life. Having felt much distress at not seeing him for so long, they held him in tight embrace. That is, they held Nanda in tight embrace. Vasudev, Krishna's birth father, Vasudev and Devaki were Krishna's birth father and mother. This was the situation in which Krishna was born in the jail cell, because Devaki's, Krishna's birth mother, her brother had imprisoned them. So Vasudeva and Devaki were in jail, and he had killed 7 of the previous children. And now Krishna was the 8th child. And he had to be immediately removed from there and taken to the home of Nanda and Yashoda. So Vasudeva had taken Krishna there and taken their baby away. It's a long story. You've got to follow from the beginning. And then Krishna was raised by Nanda and Yashoda. And together they had wonderful pastimes. Mother Yashoda with Krishna, seeing him walk, seeing him do all kinds of mischievous pranks, stealing butter from all the neighbors, feeding it to the monkeys, along with their friends. They had witnessed all these wonderful pastimes of Krishna, and they had just completely been besotted with him, in love with him. Finally, he had gone away and killed the great king Kamsa, who had imprisoned his parents. Kamsa was the brother of Krishna's birth mother, Devaki. So now we have Vasudeva, Krishna's birth father, embracing Nanda, who was the foster father who raised Krishna. Vasudeva embraced Nanda with great joy. Beside himself with ecstatic love, Vasudeva remembered the troubles King Kamsa had caused him, forcing him to leave his son in Gokul for their safety. So both Krishna and Balaram had been left in Gokul along with Nanda and Yashoda. O hero of the Kurus, Krishna and Balaram embraced their foster parents and bowed down to them. Their foster parents being Nanda and Yashoda. But their throats were so choked up with tears of love that the 2 brothers could say nothing. Raising their 2 sons onto their laps and holding them in their arms, Nanda and Yashoda forgot their sorrow. So in the purport it is written, after the initial embraces and obeisances, Vasudeva, Krishna's birth father, who was now living with Krishna in Dwarka, Nanda and Yashoda was still in Vrindavan, along with all the gopis, and all the cowherd people were still in Vrindavan. Krishna was there with Vasudeva and Devaki and all the other Vrishnis and Yadavas. They were all living in Dwarka, hundreds and hundreds of miles away. So now that they were meeting for the first time, so many embraces, so many respectful greetings. Then Vasudeva took Nanda and Yashoda into his tent. And as they were there, Nanda and Yashoda are holding Krishna and Balaram's hands and going into the tent. Following them, of course, were Rohini and the other women and men of Vrindavan and some attendants. Inside, Nanda and Yashoda, father and mother, the step, or shall we say, not step, but the foster father and mother of Krishna and Balaram, took the 2 boys on their laps. Despite having heard the glories of Krishna and Balaram in Dwarka, and how powerful they were, and how opulent they were, and how rich they were, and how great they were as kings now, despite seeing their opulence before their eyes, Nanda and Yashoda looked upon them as if they were still 8-year-old children. For them, still they're little boys, so they sat them on their laps. Then Rohini and Devaki. Rohini is the mother of Balaram, and Devaki is the birth mother of Krishna and Balaram. So Rohini and Devaki both embraced Queen Yashoda, remembering the faithful friendship she had shown them. Their throats choking with tears, they addressed her as follows. Rohini and Devaki said, "What woman could forget the unceasing friendship you and Nanda have shown us, dear Queen of Vrindavan? There is no way to repay you in this world, even with the wealth of the king of the Devas, Indra. You acted as their parents and gave these boys affectionate, loving care, training, nourishment, and protection." So this is what Yashoda did for Krishna. They're talking about Krishna and Balaram. They were never afraid because you protected them, just as the eyelids protect the eyes. In fact, the truth is that Krishna and Balaram were protecting the residents of Vrindavan all the time from all the demoniac beings that Kansa was sending across to attack them. But as mothers, they are talking differently. They were never afraid. The boys were never afraid because you protected them, Yashoda, just as the eyelids protect the eyes. Indeed, saintly persons like you never discriminate between outsiders and their own kin. So you took them in as your own children and raised them as your own. In the purport, it's written, Krishna and Balaram had not seen their parents, that is Nanda and Yashoda, for two reasons. Externally, because of their they're talking here about their birth parents. Krishna and Balaram had not seen their birth parents initially during their childhood. They had not seen their birth parents for two reasons. Externally, because of they had to go to Vrindavan. They had been exiled to Vrindavan. But internally, because they are never actually born and therefore have no parents. So to say that Krishna and Balaram had parents, birth parents, is actually false, because they are never born and they never die. They did not take birth the way you and I took birth from our parents. Their birth was literally what people have described in the case of some as the virgin birth. It was already there thousands of years before Christ. So that was that kind of, they appeared. You will see in images that I've shown you earlier, where Krishna appears in front of his parents just at the time of birth, and then shows his form as four-handed Vishnu. Because they're afraid, they're terrified that he's going to be killed. They are never actually born and therefore have no parents. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti also describes what Devaki thought before speaking. Devaki, Krishna's quote-unquote birth mother, was thinking, for so long as these two sons of mine had you, Yashoda, as their guardian and mother, but because they were immersed in such a vast ocean of ecstatic loving dealings with you, now that you are once more before them, they are too distracted to even notice me. Also, you are behaving as if insane and blind with love for them, showing millions of times more maternal affection than I possess. Thus, you simply keep staring at us, your friends, without recognizing us. So let me bring you back to reality on the pretext of some affectionate words. So what is being described here is that Nanda and Yashoda, on seeing Krishna and Balaram, were in such ecstatic rapture that they couldn't recognize anybody else around. They were just mesmerized. They were just completely besotted with love. Then when Devaki failed to get any response from Yashoda, even after addressing her, Rohini said, My dear Devaki, it is impossible just now to rouse you out of your ecstatic trance. We are crying in the wilderness, and her two sons are no less bound up in the ropes of affection for her than she is for them. So let us go outside to meet with the others. So now Devaki goes outside to meet with the other people. Meanwhile, there's another group of people who are waiting to meet with Krishna, and that's the gopis. Krishna had enjoyed such amazing pastimes with the gopis in Vrindavan when he was a boy. All of this was till the age of 11, although he's shown as being much older. He was only 11 years old when he left Vrindavan. And here with Radha and with the gopis, enjoyed the most amazing pastimes, the most beautiful love affair ever. They danced together. They'd meet in the middle of the night and dance. And then when he left, they were broken-hearted. Now they were meeting once again, after all these years. While gazing at their beloved Krishna, the young gopis used to condemn the Creator for having created eyelids, which would momentarily block their vision of him, because as you blink, you're no longer able to see him. So they would curse the Creator, Brahma. How did you create eyelids like this? We have to blink, and then we cannot see him even for that moment. And now it had been years, decades since they hadn't seen him. Now seeing Krishna again after such a long separation, with their eyes they took him into their hearts, and there they embraced him to their full satisfaction. In this way they became totally absorbed in ecstatic meditation on him. although those who constantly practice mystic yoga find such absorption difficult to achieve. See, the meditation that arises from devotion, from bhakti, from love, is far greater than the meditation that a yogi arrives at. Why? Because it involves the heart. It's not just the mind. It's not just some energy, but it is the yoga of devotion, of love. And when one experiences that, there is nothing greater than it. Just then Balaram saw the gopis standing. So when he had seen Balaram, so then the purport explains that when Balaram had seen the gopis standing a short distance away, seeing them trembling with eagerness to meet Krishna and apparently ready to give up their lives if they could not, he tactfully decided to get up and involve himself elsewhere. And the gopis attained the state described in the current verse. In referring to the gopis' intolerant disrespect of Brahma, creator of the eyelids, Shukdev Goswami is giving vent to his own subtle jealousy of the gopis' favored position. In the book Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Srila Prabhupada writes, because they had been separated from Krishna for so many years, the gopis, having come along with King Nanda and Mother Yashoda, felt intense ecstasy in seeing Krishna. No one can even imagine how anxious the gopis were to see Krishna again. As soon as Krishna became visible to them, they took him inside their hearts, through their eyes, and embraced him to their full satisfaction. Even though they were embracing Krishna only mentally, they became so ecstatic and overwhelmed with joy that for the time being they completely forgot themselves. The ecstatic trance with which they achieved simply by mentally embracing Krishna is impossible to achieve even for great yogis who are constantly engaged in meditation. Krishna could understand that the gopis were wrapped in ecstasy, and therefore, since he is present in everyone's heart, he also reciprocated by embracing them from within. Supreme Lord Krishna approached the gopis in his secluded place as they stood in their ecstatic trance. Krishna expanded himself with his Vibhuti Shakti to embrace each of the gopis individually, thus waking each of them from her trance. He relieved each of them from their pain of separation by embracing them and inquiring about their well-being. He then laughed to help lighten their spirits, and he said, so now he goes into a little philosophical thing here. Krishna said, my dear girlfriends, do you still remember me? It was for my relative's sake that I stayed away so long. It is true. Intent on destroying my enemies. Do you perhaps think I'm ungrateful and thus hold me in contempt? After all, it is the Supreme Lord who brings living beings together and then separates them. Now, while there's great wisdom in what Krishna is saying here, and will continue to say, the gopis are way beyond this kind of philosophy. So Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti reveals the gopis' thoughts. We are not like you, who with your heart shattered by remembering us day and night, gave up all sense enjoyment in your distress of separation. Rather, we have not remembered you at all. So this is, of course, projection, you could say. I think both things might be true. Krishna also remembered them every single day, and they remembered him every single moment of every single day. Krishna thought, just as the wind blows together, or rather Krishna said, just as the wind blows together masses of clouds, blades of grass, wisps of cotton, and particles of dust, only to scatter them all again, so the Creator deals with his created beings in the same way. Rendering devotional service to me qualifies any living being for eternal life. But by your good fortune, you have developed a special loving attitude toward me, by which you have obtained me. This is important to understand. They have not just gained moksha or liberation. They have not just gained freedom from the cycle of birth and death, but they have gained and obtained and purchased and got for themselves the Supreme Being, the source of all beauty, the source of all knowledge, of all wisdom, of all power, of all strength, just through the power of love. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, the gopis then replied, but what Supreme Lord are you blaming? That Supreme Lord is none other than yourself, O most clever of speakers. Everyone in the world knows this. Why should we be ignorant of this fact? Krishna then tells them, if this is true, I must be God, but still I am conquered by your loving affection. Krishna says to them, Dear ladies, I am the beginning and end of all created beings and exist both within them and outside them, just as the elements, ether, water, earth, air, and fire are the beginning and end of all material objects and exist both within and outside those objects. Here, Krishna implies the following idea. If you know that I am the Supreme Lord, there should be no question of your suffering any separation from me, since I pervade all existence. Your unhappiness must be due to lack of discrimination. So he's kind of challenging them in a way. Therefore, please take this instruction from me, which will remove your ignorance. The truth of the matter is that you gopis were, in your previous lives, great masters of yoga. This is the truth that one needs to know. In their previous lives, they were great yogis, great masters of yoga, and thus you must already know this science of Jnana Yoga. Jnana Yoga is the yoga of knowledge. Furthermore, whether I try to teach this to you in person or through my representatives such as Uddhava, I will not produce the desired result. Jnana Yoga simply causes suffering for those who are fully immersed in pure love of Godhead. You see, you need Jnana to reach that stage of love of God. But one who has reached that stage doesn't need Jnana anymore. They are already there. There is no need for a person who has, let's say, if you think of high school, if you're studying, let's say, some great famous author, let's think of Shakespeare, you now don't need to go back and revisit ABC. You already know ABC. So Jnana Yoga is like that ABC. Yes, you need it. You cannot, a student cannot go, without learning ABC, cannot get to the point of reading, say, Shakespeare. Similarly, one cannot get to love of God without having proper knowledge and understanding. But then as one advances, one now is in a whole different realm. And this very basic intellectual knowledge that Krishna is giving them becomes quite meaningless. A jnani with realization, a jnani is the person who is very immersed in knowledge, very knowledgeable person. A jnani with realization of these facts should feel no separation from God in any situation. But the gopis of Vrindavan are so much more elevated in their Krishna consciousness than any ordinary jnani. Because of their intense love for Krishna in his most human-like, all-attractive aspect as a young cowherd boy, Krishna's internal potency, Yogamaya, covered their knowledge of his majestic aspects, such as his all-pervasiveness. So, Yogamaya is Krishna's energy. Just as there is a Maya in this world, which bewilders us, those who are coming to the Leela of Krishna are also being bewildered. But they are being bewildered because Krishna doesn't want them to relate to him as God. He wants them to relate to him as he is, as a beautiful boy, as someone so adorable, as someone so lovable. He wants them to relate to him as that, to love them for who he is and not for what he is. Thus the gopis were able to relish the intense ecstasy caused by their love and separation from him. See that there is a great, if they went by the yogis and experienced him everywhere, they would feel no separation. But there is a depth in that love that is in separation. That love in separation is so intense, so powerful, that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was constantly immersed in that. It was greater than even the love in togetherness. That does not happen in the material world. In the material world, yeah, you have songs that say, absence makes the heart grow fonder, right? Even lovers need a holiday. But in the spiritual context, in a sense, they're never separated. They can never be separated. And yet the experience of separation can only exist within this world. They come here to taste that. And it is so profound that Radha and the gopis savored and relished and basked in this intense feelings of separation. It felt like agony, it felt like pain, it felt like suffering, and yet it was the greatest ecstasy of all. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came 500 years ago and experienced this because he felt, I need to know what was Radha feeling for me. And so he felt those deep feelings of intense separation, and at times he would be in such ecstatic rapture and passing out and fainting and just diving into the river or in the ocean, actually. He was just so much ecstasy. It was impossible to contain. In this way, all created beings reside within the basic elements of creation, while the spirit souls pervade the creation, remaining in their own true identity. You should see both of these, Krishna is telling them, the material creation and the self, as manifest within me, the supreme imperishable truth. Having thus been instructed by Krishna in spiritual matters, the gopis were freed of all tinges of false ego because of their incessant meditation upon him, and with their deepening absorption in him, they came to understand him fully. Srila Prabhupada writes in Krishna, if you haven't got it, the Krishna book is a great read. It's available in Amazon. So Srila Prabhupada writes there, the gopis, having been instructed by Krishna in this philosophy of simultaneous oneness and difference, remained always in Krishna consciousness and thus became liberated from all material contamination. So what is this? The simultaneous oneness and difference. We are simultaneously, they were feeling his presence everywhere, and at the same time they were feeling intense separation from him. Simultaneously. It's very powerful. The consciousness of the living entity who falsely presents himself as the enjoyer of the material world is called Jiva Kosha. So we, the living entities, try to be the enjoyer of this world. This condition is called Jiva Kosha, which means imprisonment by the false ego. We are all imprisoned by our false ego. We think I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm this, I'm that, I'm rich, I'm poor. We're conditioned and we are in these bodies and identified with the ego, with the body, with the mind, with all our conditioning. We're trapped, right? This is the imprisonment. This is called Jiva Kosha. Not only the gopis, but anyone who follows these instructions of Krishna becomes immediately freed from Jiva Kosha imprisonment. A person in full Krishna consciousness is always liberated from false egoism. He utilizes everything for Krishna's service and is not at any time separated from Krishna. The gopis spoke thus, Dear Krishna, whose navel is just like a lotus flower, your lotus feet are the only shelter for those who have fallen into the deep well of material existence. Your feet are worshipped and meditated upon by great yogis and highly learned philosophers. We wish that those lotus feet may also be awakened within our hearts, although we are only ordinary persons engaged in household affairs. Now see, the gopis are considered the highest of all Krishna's devotees. They have the greatest experience of love of God. But they position themselves as just ordinary persons engaged in household affairs. This is called humility. And this humility is the doorway to love of God. It is what allows you to progress the most in spiritual life. The purport is written, revealing the jealous mood in which the gopis spoke these deceptively reverential words. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti gives their statements, or rather reframes their statements as follows. O Supreme Lord, O direct, manifest Supersoul, Paramatma, O crest jewel of instructors in definitive knowledge, you were aware of our excessive attachment to home, property, and family. Therefore, you previously had Uddhava instruct us in the knowledge that dispels ignorance, and now you have done so yourself. In this way, you have purified our hearts of contamination, and as a result, we understand your pure love for us, free from any motivation other than assuring our liberation. But we are only unintelligent cowherd women. How can this knowledge remain fixed in our hearts? We cannot even meditate steadily on your feet, the focus of realization for great souls like Brahma. Please be merciful to us and somehow make it possible for us to concentrate on you, even a little. We are still suffering the reactions of our own karma, so how can we meditate on you, the goal of great yogis? Such yogis are immeasurably wise, but we are mere feeble-minded women. Please do something to get us out of this deep well of material existence. Pure devotees are never motivated by a desire for material elevation or spiritual liberation. And even if the Supreme Lord offers them such benedictions, the devotees often refuse to accept them, meaning the material benefits or liberation from this world, not interested. As stated in Krishna in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, because my devotees possess saintly behavior and deep intelligence, they completely dedicate themselves to me and do not desire anything besides me. Krishna says in the Gita, of all the yogis, one who worships me with loving devotion is to be considered the highest of all. Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojataha. And Vasudeva, one who engages in bhakti of Krishna, automatically gets jnana and vairagya, gets knowledge and detachment from the world, automatically. and attains love of God. Krishna is saying, indeed, even if I offer my devotees liberation from birth and death, they do not accept it. It is quite appropriate, therefore, that the gopis respond with a trace of jealous anger to Krishna's attempt at teaching them Jnana Yoga. The words the gopis speak in this verse may be interpreted as follows. O sun, meaning S-U-N, who directly destroys the darkness of ignorance, we are scorched by the sun rays of this philosophical knowledge. We are like chakora birds who can subsist only on moonlight radiating from your beautiful face. We don't need this harsh sun of your knowledge. Please come back to Vrindavan with us, and in this way bring us back to life. And if Krishna were to say, then come to Dwarka, there we will enjoy together, they would reply that Vrindavan is their home, and they are too attached to it for them to take up residence anywhere else. Only there, the gopis imply, can Krishna attract them by wearing peacock feathers in his turban and playing enchanting music with his flute. Only by his appearing again in Vrindavan can the gopis be saved, not by any other kind of meditation on him or theoretical knowledge of the self. It is said that after this moment, Radha saw Krishna standing outside the tent and called him in and placed her head on his lap. Placed his head on her lap, because Krishna was feeling embarrassed to even meet with her. He was feeling ashamed. He had not seen her in so many years, decades. Finally, they met. She told him, don't worry, I'm fine, I'm okay. And as he rested his head on her lap, all his worries drifted away. So, there is a love here that is very difficult to understand for the ordinary person. We think in very different ways. God thinks in very different ways. I encourage you to try to understand to the best of your ability. I'm not going to claim that I do. I'm not going to claim that I understand. All I can do is present to you these wonderful texts. And I hope that together we can grow and learn and help each other get closer and closer to Krishna and to that love of God that the gopis experienced. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for being here. Hare Krishna. I'll see you next week. Good night.